My golden child sister stole my wedding plans for her baby's party, so I flipped the script, and she was left to face the wreckage alone. I never thought the happiest day of my life would become a battlefield with my sister, until she decided to turn my wedding into her own personal show. My name is Amelia Carter, I'm 29 years old, and I've spent my entire career making other people's dream weddings come true as an event manager. Ironically, I never imagined I'd have to fight tooth and nail just to have my own. But here I am, sitting in my wedding dress at 5 in the morning, finally understanding what it means to choose yourself over family expectations. Growing up, Melissa was always the golden child. 3 years older, effortlessly beautiful, and blessed with that magnetic personality that made everyone orbit around her like she was the sun itself. I learned early that my role was to be the supporting actress in the Melissa show. When she wanted my toys, I handed them over. When she needed help with homework, I did it for her. When she started her yoga influencer career and needed a photographer, I gave up my weekend plans to help. It wasn't malicious, or so I told myself. It was just how our family worked. The pattern continued into adulthood. Family dinners revolved around Melissa's latest Instagram milestones, her yoga retreats, her organic smoothie recipes that were apparently revolutionary. I'd sit there, nodding and smiling, while my parents hung on her every word about chakras and wellness trends. My job planning elaborate weddings for celebrities? Oh, that's nice, honey. Melissa's post about morning meditation getting 50,000 likes? Did you see what your sister accomplished today? So when I got engaged to David last spring, I was genuinely excited to finally have something that was mine. David and I had been together for 4 years. He's a graphic designer, quiet and thoughtful. Everything Melissa's ex-boyfriends weren't. Our relationship wasn't Instagram-worthy drama. It was steady, real, built on actual compatibility rather than photo opportunities. The wedding planning consumed my every free moment for months, but I loved every second of it. October 15th emerged as the perfect date after weeks of researching weather patterns and venue availability. That magical sweet spot when autumn leaves would paint the landscape in brilliant golds and deep crimsons, while the air remained crisp enough to be refreshing without requiring heavy coats that would hide my dress. The historic Whitmore Estate had been my dream venue since college, when I'd attended a sorority sister's wedding there and fallen in love with its ivy-covered stone walls and sprawling gardens. Securing it for our date felt like winning the lottery. I meticulously arranged every detail. A string quartet whose repertoire perfectly balanced classical elegance with modern romance. Seasonal flowers that would echo the natural autumn palette. Burgundy dahlias, golden chrysanthemums, and cascading greenery that would look like the gardens had dressed themselves for our celebration. The menu featured harvest-inspired dishes. The linens were the exact shade of champagne that would complement the evening light, and even the wedding favors were carefully chosen artisanal candles in amber glass holders. Every decision was deliberate, meaningful, and mine. For the first time in my life, I was orchestrating something where I would be the undeniable center, the star of my own story, and it felt absolutely magical. I sent out save the dates in May, including one to Melissa, of course. She'd just announced her pregnancy, her first child, and I was genuinely happy for her. Pregnant Melissa was actually easier to deal with than regular Melissa. The morning sickness had dialed down her usual dramatic flair, and she seemed more focused on growing her pregnancy wellness brand than competing for family attention. Everything was perfect until 3 weeks ago. I was at David's apartment, addressing the final wedding invitations, when my phone rang. Melissa's contact photo, a professional headshot from her yoga website, filled the screen. "Amelia, I have the most amazing news." Her voice had that breathless quality she used when she was about to announce something she considered groundbreaking. "What's up?" I tucked the phone between my ear and shoulder, continuing to address envelopes. "I'm throwing my baby shower on October 15th. Isn't that perfect? The whole family will already be together for your thing, so we can make it a double celebration." My hand froze mid-address. "My thing? Your wedding, silly. We can do the baby shower in the morning, and then everyone can just transition to your wedding in the evening. It'll be so efficient." I felt something cold settle in my stomach. "Melissa, October 15th is my wedding day. The whole day. The ceremony is at 4, but we have hair and makeup starting at 9, photos at 2, and the reception goes until midnight." Oh. There was a pause, but not the kind where someone realizes they've made a mistake. It was calculating. Well, my doctor said this is the only weekend that works with my due date and his schedule. You know how hard it is to coordinate these things when you're pregnant? But you could do it any other weekend. Amelia, you're being a little selfish here. This is about my baby, your grandparents' first great-grandchild. Surely you can understand that this is more important than party logistics. Party logistics? She called my wedding party logistics. Melissa, I sent you the save the date 5 months ago. And I'm telling you about this now so we can work together. Come on, it'll be fun. We can coordinate themes. Maybe something with autumn colors? I'm thinking gold and burgundy. Gold and burgundy. My exact wedding colors. I'm not changing my wedding date. Nobody's asking you to change anything. Just maybe push the ceremony to evening, like 7 or 8? That way my shower can run from 11 to 4, and then everyone can just change and head over to your venue. I looked at David, who had stopped pretending to read his book and was watching my face with growing concern. He'd been dealing with Melissa's particular brand of narcissism for 4 years now, and he could read the warning signs. Melissa, no, I'm not rearranging my wedding around your baby shower. Fine. Her voice went cold. I'll call Mom and Dad and see what they think about you prioritizing party planning over your first nephew. She hung up. David set down his book. Let me guess. She wants to throw her baby shower on our wedding day. Of course she does. I should have seen it coming. This was classic Melissa. The moment attention shifted away from her, she found a way to reclaim it. But this time felt different. This time felt deliberate. My phone buzzed with a text from my mother. Call me. I knew that tone, even in 2 words. Amelia, sweetheart. Mom's voice was already in mediation mode when I called back. Melissa told me about the conflict with dates. There's no conflict. My wedding was planned first. I know, honey, but you have to understand her position. The doctor really did say, Mom, she can do her baby shower literally any other weekend. But it makes sense to combine events. Think about your grandparents. They're getting older, and traveling twice in a month is hard on them. Plus, Uncle Robert would have to fly in from Seattle twice. I felt the familiar sensation of being gaslit by my own family. So I should change my wedding? Just move it to evening. You know how much everyone loves those sunset ceremonies? And Melissa's pregnancy is so delicate right now. The stress of fighting with you isn't good for the baby. There it was. The baby card. I was being asked to sacrifice my wedding because standing up for myself might stress my pregnant sister. Mom, I'm not changing my wedding date. Amelia, this is about family. Sometimes we have to make compromises. What compromise is Melissa making? Silence. I have to go, Mom. I hung up and immediately called my venue coordinator to confirm our contract. Everything was locked in, non-refundable, and perfect. The Whitmore estate, the string quartet, the photographer who'd captured magazine-worthy weddings across the state, all of it scheduled for October 15th. Then I made a mistake. I checked Melissa's Instagram. She'd already posted about the baby shower. Posted. As in, public announcement to her 80,000 followers. The image was a mock-up invitation in gold and burgundy, my exact wedding colors, with the date prominently displayed October 15th. Can't wait to celebrate our little miracle with family and friends. The hashtags made my blood run cold. Hashtag baby shower, hashtag October baby, hashtag fall celebration, hashtag golden burgundy, hashtag Whitmore estate. Whitmore estate. She'd tagged my wedding venue. I screenshot everything and called the estate immediately. Hi, this is Amelia Carter. I have a wedding booked for October 15th, and I need to check if there are any other events scheduled that day. Let me check. Yes, Miss Carter. Actually, we had someone call earlier today asking about availability for a baby shower the same day. We explained that the venue is exclusively yours from 8 a.m. to midnight, but they seem to think there might be some arrangement. There's no arrangement. The venue is mine for the entire day. Of course. I'll make a note that any inquiries should be directed to you first. I hung up, shaking. She'd actually tried to book my venue, not just the same day. She'd tried to book my actual venue. David found me on his couch an hour later, laptop open, scrolling through vendor emails. My photographer had received an inquiry that morning about shooting a baby shower on October 15th. My florist had gotten a call asking if they could add some baby shower arrangements to the existing order. Even my string quartet had been contacted about playing something more maternal during their scheduled performance time. She's trying to hijack our entire wedding, I said. David sat next to me, looking at the evidence I'd compiled. This isn't about convenience or doctor schedules. No, it's not. What do you want to do? That was the thing about David that made me fall in love with him. He didn't tell me what I should do or how I should feel. He asked what I wanted and then supported it completely. I want my wedding day to be mine. Then we make sure it is. The next morning, I called my parents and asked for a family meeting. Melissa arrived at my childhood home looking radiant in a flowing maternity dress, her hands resting protectively on her bump. She'd brought her phone and a notebook, clearly prepared to negotiate. I'm so glad we're all talking about this, she said before anyone else could speak. I have some amazing ideas for how we can blend the celebrations. I found the perfect dual-purpose decorations, and my photographer can cover both events. Stop. I'd never interrupted Melissa before in my life. The word came out harder than I intended, and everyone stared at me. This isn't a negotiation. Dad shifted uncomfortably. Sweetheart, we're all family here. Exactly. We're family. Which is why I can't believe you're all asking me to give up my wedding day so Melissa can throw a party. It's not just a party, Melissa said, her voice taking on that wounded tone she'd perfected over the years. This is about celebrating new life. Your nephew. Our nephew, I corrected. And I'm excited to celebrate him. On any day except October 15th. Mom sighed. Amelia, honey, you're being inflexible. Melissa's situation is more complicated. How? How is it more complicated? She can pick any weekend. I can't. I have contracts, deposits, vendors scheduled, guests flying in. 150 people have made plans around October 15th because I sent save the dates 5 months ago. But if we combine events, people only have to travel once. Nobody asked them to travel twice. Melissa can do her shower in November, December, or any other weekend that doesn't conflict with my wedding. Melissa's eyes filled with tears. I can't believe you're being so selfish about this. I thought you'd be happy to share such a special day with me. Share? You tried to book my venue, my photographer, and my florist. You posted about it on Instagram using my wedding colors before even asking me. That's not sharing, that's taking over. I was trying to coordinate. You were trying to hijack my wedding. The room went silent. I'd never called Melissa out so directly, and the shock on everyone's faces was almost comical. Dad cleared his throat. That's a serious accusation, Amelia. I pulled out my phone and showed them the screenshots. Melissa's Instagram post with my wedding colors and venue tag. The timestamps showing she'd posted it the same day she called me, before our conversation ended. The list of vendors who'd been contacted. She planned this before she even told me about it. Melissa's face went pale. I was just being efficient. You were being manipulative. Mom looked at the evidence, then at Melissa, then back at me. For the first time in my life, I saw doubt in her eyes when it came to defending her firstborn. Melissa, Dad said slowly, did you really try to book Amelia's venue? I was just checking availability, using my wedding colors, on my wedding date, at my venue. The silence stretched until it became uncomfortable. Finally, Melissa stood up, one hand on her back in that universal pregnant woman gesture that usually guaranteed sympathy. Fine. You want your precious day all to yourself? Keep it. I hope you're happy being the center of attention while your nephew grows up knowing his aunt cared more about party planning than family. She grabbed her purse and headed for the door, pausing dramatically in the doorway. Don't expect me to come to your wedding. I'll be too busy preparing for the most important day of my life, the day I become a mother. The door slammed, leaving the three of us in stunned silence. She'll come around, Mom said finally, but she sounded uncertain. I went home and cried for 2 hours. Not because I was sad, because I was furious. Furious that it had taken 29 years for me to stand up to my sister. Furious that my family had been so ready to sacrifice my happiness for hers. Furious that I'd wasted so much time trying to be the perfect supporting character in someone else's story. But underneath the anger was something else, relief. For the first time in my life, I'd chosen myself over keeping peace with Melissa, and despite the guilt my parents were trying to make me feel, it felt right. David found me on the couch that evening, wedding planning binders spread around me like battle plans. How are you doing? I'm changing the whole wedding. His face went carefully neutral. Changing it how? Not the date, never the date, but everything else. I looked up at him, and I knew my eyes were bright with something that felt dangerously close to excitement. I'm tired of trying to please people who don't actually care about my happiness. This is supposed to be our day, right? The day we celebrate our love and commitment? Right. So why am I planning it around people who would sacrifice it for someone else's convenience? David sat down next to me. What are you thinking? I'm thinking we invite only the people who actually want to be there. Not out of obligation or family pressure, but because they love us and want to celebrate with us. That's a much smaller guest list. I know. I'd spent the afternoon going through our invitation list with new eyes. How many of these people were there because they were supposed to be versus because they actually cared about David and me? My mom's college friends who I hadn't spoken to in years. Dad's business associates? Melissa's yoga instructor friends who barely knew me? What about your family? I'll invite them. All of them. But I'm not changing anything to accommodate people who don't support us. Over the next week, something interesting happened. Word got out about the Melissa situation. Partly because she'd posted a cryptic Instagram story about toxic family members who prioritize parties over babies, and partly because my Aunt Sarah called to ask if the rumors about dual celebrations were true. When I explained what had actually happened, Aunt Sarah was quiet for a long moment. "Honey," she said finally, "I love your sister, but she's been the center of attention for 32 years. Maybe it's time she learned to share the spotlight." Similar conversations happened with my grandparents, my cousins, even some of my parents' friends. People I'd expected to side with Melissa, or at least push for compromise, were instead expressing frustration with behavior they'd apparently been noticing for years. She did the same thing at my graduation party, my cousin Jennifer told me, announced her engagement right in the middle of my speech. I never said anything because, it's Melissa. Remember when she brought that photographer to Mom's birthday dinner? Aunt Sarah added. Turned the whole thing into a photo shoot for her wellness blog. It was like everyone had been waiting for permission to acknowledge what they'd been seeing all along. Meanwhile, Melissa's social media campaign was backfiring spectacularly. Her attempt to paint me as a bridezilla who wouldn't accommodate her pregnancy had generated the opposite response she'd intended. Comments on her posts were split between her usual supporters and people calling out her behavior. "Girl, you tried to book her venue? That's not okay. Why couldn't you pick literally any other weekend? This sounds like you're trying to steal her thunder, not coordinate events." She deleted the post after 2 days, but screenshots live forever on the internet. My parents were struggling. Dad called me on Wednesday evening, his voice tired. "Your mother and I have been talking about October 15th, and about the conversation we had with Melissa yesterday." I waited. She admitted she could have chosen another weekend. She said she just thought it would be nice to share the celebration. Dad, I know it wasn't about sharing. He sighed. "Your mother and I owe you an apology. We've spent so many years managing Melissa's intensity that we forgot you have needs too. I don't need you to manage her anymore. I need you to support me. We want to. Will you let us?" The conversation with Mom was harder. She cried, which made me cry, and for an hour we talked about things we'd never discussed before. How exhausting it had been to parent Melissa. How they'd gotten into the habit of giving her what she wanted to avoid the dramatic meltdowns. How they'd somehow convinced themselves that I was fine with always coming second because I never complained. "I thought you were just naturally more accommodating," she said. "I didn't realize we were asking you to sacrifice yourself." I didn't realize it either until now. 2 weeks before the wedding, Melissa called me, not texted, actually called, which she never did unless she wanted something or was in crisis. "I'm not coming to your wedding," she announced without preamble. Okay. The response clearly wasn't what she'd expected. "Okay? That's all you have to say? What do you want me to say, Melissa? That I'll beg you to come? That I'll rearrange everything to make you happy? I'm done with that. I'm your sister. Yes, you are. And I'm yours. But you tried to hijack my wedding. And when that didn't work, you launched a social media campaign to make me look bad. So if you don't want to come celebrate David and me, that's your choice. You've changed?" "Yeah, I have. I don't like it." "You don't have to." She hung up, but this time I didn't cry. I called David instead. "She's not coming to the wedding. How do you feel about that?" I thought about it honestly. Relieved. The morning of October 15th dawned crisp and golden, exactly like I'd imagined. The Whitmore estate looked like something from a fairy tale, with autumn leaves scattered across the grounds and soft morning light filtering through the oak trees. My new, smaller bridal party consisted of my 2 college roommates and David's sister, people who were there because they loved us, not because they felt obligated. My makeup artist was someone who specialized in natural, glowing looks rather than Instagram-worthy drama. My photographer focused on capturing real moments instead of staged perfection. At 11 a.m., as I was getting my hair done, my phone buzzed with Instagram notifications. Melissa had gone live from what appeared to be a hastily assembled baby shower in my parents' backyard. The description read, "Intimate celebration with my real family who prioritize what matters." There were maybe 8 people there. I turned off my phone and didn't check it again until after midnight. The wedding was everything I dreamed it would be. Intimate, elegant, and completely focused on David and me. My grandparents cried during our vows. My dad's toast was about love and partnership, rather than generic wedding platitudes. My mom caught the bouquet and laughed until she snorted. But the most surprising moment came during the reception, when my Aunt Sarah stood up for an impromptu speech. "I've watched Amelia grow up," she said, "and I've always admired her kindness and grace. But today, I'm proud of her for something else, for finally putting herself first, for showing all of us that it's possible to be loving and generous while still respecting your own needs." The room erupted in applause, and I realized that people had been waiting for this moment too. Not just the wedding, but the moment when I stopped shrinking myself to make room for Melissa's drama. Later, as David and I danced to our first song as a married couple, I saw my parents at their table, looking happier and more relaxed than they had in years. Without Melissa's constant need for attention and drama, they could actually enjoy the celebration. "Any regrets?" David asked as we swayed to the music. I looked around at the faces of people who genuinely wanted to be there, at the decorations that reflected our actual taste instead of someone else's Instagram aesthetic, at the celebration that was completely and authentically ours. Not one. The aftermath was swift and decisive. Melissa's social media tantrum had backfired so completely that she'd lost several brand partnerships and a significant number of followers. Her yoga studio received negative reviews from people who'd heard about the wedding drama. The pregnancy wellness community, it turned out, didn't appreciate influencers who tried to sabotage their sisters' weddings. More importantly, the family dynamic shifted permanently. My parents, freed from the exhausting cycle of managing Melissa's reactions, began setting boundaries. When she demanded they choose sides after the wedding, they chose reality over drama for the first time in 3 decades. "We love you," Dad told her during what I heard was a very difficult conversation. "But your behavior toward your sister was unacceptable. You need to figure out how to be happy for other people without making it about yourself." Melissa spent 2 weeks posting cryptic quotes about toxic family dynamics and standing alone in your truth before finally deleting all her social media accounts. She moved to Portland with her boyfriend, claiming she needed space to heal from family trauma. The funny thing was, I wasn't even angry anymore. I felt sorry for her. 32 years old and still so desperate for attention that she'd sabotage her own sister's wedding. How exhausting it must be to live like that, constantly competing for love and validation. 6 months later, she reached out through our mom. She wanted to apologize and rebuild our relationship before the baby came. I was willing to listen, but on my terms. No more being the accommodating little sister who absorbed her drama and enabled her behavior. Our first conversation in months was stilted but honest. "I was jealous," she admitted. "Everyone was so excited about your wedding, and I felt invisible. You have 80,000 Instagram followers. You're hardly invisible. That's different. That's not real." Neither was trying to hijack my wedding. "I know. I'm sorry." It wasn't a perfect reconciliation, but it was a start. More importantly, it was a relationship between equals, rather than between a star and her supporting actress. The baby came in December. A beautiful, healthy boy they named River. I visited them in the hospital bringing flowers and genuine congratulations. Melissa looked exhausted but peaceful in a way I'd never seen before. "Motherhood suits you," I told her, and I meant it. "Thank you for coming. I wasn't sure you would. I told you I was excited to meet our nephew." "Our nephew," she repeated. And for the first time in our adult relationship, she seemed to mean it. David and I celebrated our first anniversary last month with a quiet dinner at home. No drama, no competition for attention, just 2 people who chose each other and kept choosing each other every day. I still plan weddings for other people, But now I approach each one with a different philosophy. I ask couples what they actually want, not what they think they're supposed to want. I help them identify the people who genuinely support their relationship versus those who just want to be part of a party. I encourage them to prioritize their own happiness over other people's expectations. It's your day, I tell them. Make sure it's actually yours. Some people think I'm too direct now, too unwilling to compromise for the sake of family harmony. But harmony built on one person's constant sacrifice isn't actually harmony. It's just well-managed dysfunction. The truth is, I'm not afraid of being disliked anymore. I'm not afraid of being called selfish for having boundaries. I'm not afraid of standing alone if standing with others requires me to diminish myself. That October morning when I chose my wedding over my sister's manipulation was the first day of my real life. The life where I matter as much as everyone else. Where my happiness is worth protecting. Where I don't have to earn love by giving up everything that matters to me. I used to think that loving people meant sacrificing yourself for them. Now I know that real love, the kind worth building a marriage on, the kind worth having in a family, requires everyone to show up as their full, authentic selves, not as supporting characters in someone else's story, but as the protagonists of their own. And if that makes me selfish, then I'm proud to be selfish, because the alternative nearly cost me the most important day of my life, and I refuse to spend another minute apologizing for taking up space in my own story.